Welcome to Adventure Thinking, an intimate series of live video podcasts that explores the mindset born from challenge, adversity, and living a life of no regrets. I'm Jonesy, your host, and for the past 20 years, I have been lucky to have embarked on some crazy expeditions and returned transformed with some pretty epic tales to share.
And I'm Lauren, your other host, and I followed a more traditional path and focused on climbing corporate ladders, not mountains, until one day when I decided to do something different.
You just start to question why you're doing it.
Each week, we will be bringing adventure stories and mindsets down from the proverbial mountaintop as we dive into the hearts and minds of some of the world's greatest adventurers.
These people have achieved truly phenomenal undertakings against all odds and have returned better for it.
So, do you want to live more adventurously? This is Adventure Thinking. Lauren, how are we this week?
It's been a good week.
Has it?
Well, I think so. Your parents have been here, which...
It's actually so much easier to get stuff done when parents are around. It really has. So we've escaped to an island, off an island, off an island, and escaped also a lot of parental support. So this last week having mum and dad here has been absolutely brilliant.
Hence it allows us to do a live podcast.
Yeah.
We haven't done that in a couple weeks because we've been doing it at night when they're asleep. So that's pretty exciting.
And that hasn't worked either because Morgan's been coming in at 10:30 at night when she should be asleep for 2.5 hours already and busting down the door. So it's nice to have some peace and quiet for a while. And we have got a pretty fun show today. We have a very, very exciting guest. We're going to end 2020 with a bang, and it's not going to be a bad bang, it's going to be a good bang because 2020 has been a bit of an average year. So what we are looking at doing is we're going to have Robert Swan on the show today, and I am so excited that I'm actually mumbling right now and I'm stumbling over my words. I have
excited, nervous, stressed out, and we're doing some new tech stuff because Robert has a wonderful story to share, and we're so excited that we get to share an element of it through this podcast. So we're streaming it straight from his screen and straight from him, which is very exciting.
It is very exciting, and like Lauren mentioned, I don't normally get worked up, but I've been a ball of energy and nerves this morning for whatever reason.
Since 4 a.m.
I have been, but let's just leave that alone. But Robert is an amazing human being, and I have kind of been in awe of what he's done, not just because of the physical feats of being a polar explorer and what he's done in that sphere, but in what he's done as an advocate for the environment and for Antarctica in particular. So you might have seen a second ago, we had pop up on the screen, the theme for today's show is actually going to be protection, in particular protection of Antarctica. So Robert Swan is he's a Brit, so let's not hold that against him. But he was
living in America, so let's not hold that against him.
Wow, geez, that's a kettle of fish, and we're over here in Australia talking to him. So it's nice that 2020 has allowed us to be able to do that. But Robert
brought us together in different ways.
It really has. Robert Swan is the first man to have walked to both the North and the South Pole, but it was on these trips that he firsthand saw, I suppose, the damage that we as humans are doing to the natural environment, in particular pristine places like Antarctica. And that set him on the course to go out there and form a foundation called 2041. Which was about trying to keep Antarctica pristine, make sure that this last great wilderness is actually kept as it should be. And so it's going to be, I'm not going to take away his thunder because he's got a lot to talk about, and I want to dive into some of the more recent expeditions he's done. But what we will do is we will show a little video as a bit of an introduction for Robert Swan, and this is going to get everyone quite excited. So have a watch.
I have faced head-on these places, and to walk across a melting ocean of ice is without doubt the most frightening thing that's ever happened to me. 1,000 kilometers away from the safety of land, disaster strikes. The Arctic Ocean melts beneath our feet, 4 months before it ever had in history. And we're 1,000 kilometers from safety. The ice is crashing round us, grinding, and I'm thinking, are we going to die? But something clicked in my head on this day as I realized we as a world are in a survival situation. Back then we had to march or die. And sadly, on return home, it was not all fun. I became very low. To succeed at something's often harder than actually making it happen. I was without hope, but hope came in the form of the great Jacques Cousteau, and he inspired me to take on the 2041 mission. Being Jacques, he gave me clear instructions: engage the world leaders, talk to industry and business, and above all, Rob, inspire young people, because they will choose the future. Our program is a unique blend of leadership development, up-to-date climate change and sustainability education to help you on your leadership journey. Our seasoned team will guide you on the adventure of a lifetime.
It is an opportunity for people to reconnect with ecosystems, reconnect with nature, reconnect with the importance of what development does and how it changes everything.
Everybody here is a big dreamer. You're a big dreamer, otherwise you wouldn't be here. You wouldn't.
Robert, welcome to Adventure Thinking. How are you?
Hi, Rob.
I'm good. Lovely to see you both, and great to be on the show. It's exciting for me. Thank you.
Oh no, thank you for agreeing to do this. We're so pumped for this. I'm actually frothing at the moment. I'm loving the fact that you're going to help us finish off 2020 with a big bang. So I really appreciate it. But how are you, and where are you calling from right now? Lauren alluded to the fact that you're in the States. How's everything over there?
I'm in California. It's pretty chaotic. The Americans sort of got bored of COVID, and consequently there's a lot of people who are dying here. There's no discipline. It's really quite bizarre, but I do live in California. I cannot stand British weather, hence I live in the sunshine of California. And also, you know, I find that American people are much less cynical than they are in Britain about the sorts of things that we all do. So I find that people here are very supportive, and I've been here for, 7 years on and off.
Geez, and it would be an interesting period of time to be a fly on the wall in the States and see the year they've had from a COVID perspective, from a political perspective. I can't fathom it, actually. Over in Australia, we've been COVID's been fairly muted because of the role that I suppose the government has played actually in keeping it down, and the people.
But I think no matter what, everybody's feeling that this year is different. Things are changing, and/or things need to change, because we're on a trajectory that doesn't seem to be working. Normal isn't working. So, Rob, that's why I'm so excited to have you here, because I think through your adventures, you've seen things that have changed your perception about what's important. And that's why when you chose the theme protection, I was so excited to hear about what you've been doing, because you're a man of action. You're a man of action that goes places, in the adventure world. And I know that you're going to get into that in your chat with us in a moment. But you're also a man of action in doing stuff that needs to be done in the world. And for me, there's been no bigger issue to tackle than the environmental issue that we are facing, both for our kids, for our future generations, but the action has to happen now. So I'm so excited to hear your story and get to meet you. So I say thanks again for coming on, and should we dive in?
I think we should. We'll dive straight over, Rob, if you'd like, to your presentation. So we'll go share your screen.
And the theme is protection, which is pretty perfect.
Wonderful. Well, thank you very much indeed. And I'm just going to tell a very quick story, which I hope is fun for people. And this all began for me as a dream. I watched a TV program when I was 11, last time I was properly dressed, possibly the last time I had hair. And I watched the film about Scott of the Antarctic. And this film sucked me in, and actually it never really let me go. And after watching that film, I was really pretty upset that poor old Captain Scott, arrived at the South Pole thinking, yes, we're going to be the first to reach the pole, to find Amundsen, the brilliant Norwegian, his flag flying at the South Pole. And as a kid, I thought, hey, that must have been a pretty bad day for Captain Scott and his team. In fact, they all died on their return. So I thought maybe one day I could level the score and beat those brilliant Norwegians at their own game and possibly become the first to walk to both poles. That was the dream. To put it together, you both know what it's like. And 30 odd years ago, I had to raise $5 million US. Now, thank goodness, you can fly into Antarctica. When we did this, you had to go by ship. So the costs of these things then were enormous. It took 7 years of my life to raise that money. And eventually we bought our own little ship, Southern Quest, and we sailed south from London, past Africa, across to Australia, then south from New Zealand. And, the weather started to get a bit rough. And I was thinking, maybe we should have gone to the Bahamas or somewhere a little bit more sensible. And we land in Antarctica. And then a pretty reasonably serious day, like imagine watching your ship sail north now. We're 3,000 miles south of Australia and New Zealand. And in those days, we wouldn't be connected at all. There were no mobile phones, no radio communications. So 5 of us waved goodbye to the ship and just hope like hell that the ship returns a year later to collect us. 5 of us now, just like Scott and Shackleton and Amundsen, those real explorers all those years before us, we had to winter in our own small hut we brought all the way from London. 5 people who were really different, 5 people, to be honest, who didn't really like each other that much, even in London. Very different, strong characters. And we had now 9.5 months to wait. 4.5 months of darkness outside the hut, no communications, nothing. And we came through, we held respect for each other. Not an easy time inside that hut, believe you me. Then Roger Meir, our leader, Gareth Wood, and myself lay out our equipment on the edge of the Ross ice shelf. It's extraordinary to think that we had no GPS. We had no satellite communications. We had no navigation system except the sun, a sextant, and a watch. And if we made this journey, which people said could not be done, more people would have stood on the moon than walked to the pole at this stage all those years ago. So most people said we were going to die. We just knew we'd get very, very thin. And Justin, I know that you've experienced that. I would lose just about 32 kilograms on this 900-mile journey to the pole. So off we go. At this stage, it was fabulous for me. because I'm not an explorer. I can't, I think, tie more than one knot. I can't navigate. And it was now time to hand it over to the professionals. Roger Meir, Gareth Wood, tip-top people who now would lead to the pole. My job was just to pull my sledge and try my best to support them. Off we go, 9 hours a day, 7 days a week, 70 days in a row, pretty hard graft, as you well know, crossing crevasses on the mighty Beardmore Glacier, and then at last onto that enormous polar plateau, you know, the size of the USA, no one else there, bit lonely. And I really did this just to do it. I did it with all respect because it went down well with girls at parties. You know, I wasn't doing this for any other reason than to do it. But standing in this photo, we were standing on 4,500 meters of solid ice. 90% of all the world's ice is in Antarctica, 70% of all the world's fresh water. And it is today the most silent, deadly, lethal force on Earth, because if we continue to melt this, we're going to swim. Now we're 300 miles in now to go to the pole, and according to our planning, and we don't know if this is happening because we have no radio communications, our ship, Southern Quest, should have returned actually from Hobart, Australia, south, and on board that ship will be a small plane. The plane will be unloaded onto an iceberg. A complete psycho will take that aeroplane off from the iceberg, one chance, fly to the pole, look for us, we jump on the plane, go back to our base camp on the edge of Ross Island, and we do something that we promised to do. To raise $5 million when you're 23 years old, and honestly, I'd never been camping, so it wasn't the strongest sales pitch to want to do all this. I needed some help. And I hope some of the listeners today remember the name Jacques Cousteau from France, a terrific man, the man who really started in many ways, you know, the environmental movement as far as the oceans are concerned. He reminded us all that we live on planet ocean, not planet Earth. And he became my patron. He helped me with credibility, but he said, Rob, at the end of your expedition, take away all your garbage, your rubbish, your equipment, leave just your footsteps in the snow of the Antarctic. Show respect to this last great wilderness that we all own on Earth. So I said, done deal. And so when we get back to the base, we load everything onto Southern Quest, our ship, head north to where the sun shines. And that was the plan. Last few days to the South Pole, bit worrying. They live in my nightmares, because if we got our navigation wrong and we'd missed the pole by 100 miles, arrived at the pole, it wouldn't be there, run out of food, game over. But I shouldn't have worried, because I was with Roger Meir and Gareth Wood, just incredible people. And they navigated us only 300 meters off course in 900 nautical miles by the sun. Incredible people. And we stood at the pole and we were so proud of what we'd achieved, not just us three, but the whole ship and the team behind us. And as we were standing there, the base commander came out from the United States South Pole Station and said, sorry, Rob, bad news. Your ship just sank. Frankly, just the sort of thing you want to hear when you've walked 900 miles in 70 days and the first thing you hear is your ship sank. Now, most important thing, that everybody's safe. And Andrew and Sarah Robert Tissot, they live in Hobart. They were on this ship and everybody was safe. But my problem now is that we'd made a promise. And I think, honestly, in a world so full of empty words, people say things and don't deliver. I think it's important, especially in the area of protection, that we should think carefully before we make commitments. And once we make them, deliver on them. So standing at the pole, I thought, how can we deliver on our commitment to Jacques Cousteau, 3,000 miles back to Tasmania? no ship, 60 tons of equipment, and I'm bankrupt. But we had a fantastic team. And to cut a really long story short, 3 team members would spend another year in Antarctica. I managed to get the team back to New Zealand. And 1 year later, we managed at great expense and huge battle to get all of our rubbish, garbage and equipment cleared out of Antarctica. We did what we said we were going to do, and I'm really proud of that. Something happened to me that really brought me to speak to you today, both of you, and it hurt. My eyes, they changed color in 70 days through damage walking to the pole. Our faces blistered out, the skin came away. You've got to remember that 30 odd years ago, there were no fancy goggles. I didn't even have a pair of goggles, just a sort of round pair of kind of John Lennon dark glasses. I mean, really. And when you got home and you had blisters in your eyes and your face had burnt off, you wondered why. And we were told on return by NASA that we'd walked under the hole in the ozone layer. Guess what? The month it was discovered. So we didn't know that the ultraviolet rays were coming through, bounced back, burnt our faces off. And this started me thinking that maybe our survival on the planet might not be somebody else's problem. So first, it was time to execute the dream, if you like, to go to the North Pole. This time, 8 of us from 7 different nations would walk 500 miles every step of the way away from the safety of land. Every step is away from land into the middle of a frozen ocean. This would be our home for 56 nights in a row, 8 of us from 7 different nations. Here's me coming in washing naked at minus 58 degrees Celsius, next to our Australian companion there, Graham Joy. He would be a key part, bit of a hard bastard he is, from Melbourne, Australia. There's me coming in washing, and you'll notice clearly, and you'll remember this, Justin, that there's absolutely nothing hanging down in the central area of the photograph. Let's just say this is a bit chilly. And we are now 600 steps, 600 miles away from land. And the only thing we not planned for now happens. Overnight, the ocean starts to break up round us. Now, today, people would say, oh yes, this is climate change, global warming, sustainability, all those words, they weren't on the agenda 30 years ago. And all we knew is that we were going to die because no one can get to us at this stage of the journey. No helicopters, no planes can land. This was ice breaking up way, way before it ever had done. And what's extraordinary today, 30 years on, is that you cannot anymore walk to the North Pole in summer because there is no ice. Now, there's a thought. We have a massive battle now to keep going through this. Our brave American, Darrell, would become the first American to the pole on foot. His heel dropped off, only about 100 clicks out. He kept going, unbelievable courage and a fantastic team. And those last few miles to the North Pole, we got a bit of luck. The ice came together and we stood at the North Pole. Let me get this straight. That Roger Meir and Gareth Wood got me to the South Pole, and Dr. Misha Malakoff from Russia and Graham Joy, tough people, brilliant explorers, they got me to the North Pole. So I didn't do this, we did it. And I'd probably, knowing me, be still sitting in a warehouse somewhere talking about doing this. So we'd done this and we felt it important to fly the world's flag at the North Pole. Although they're slightly annoying, the United Nations, I still believe in them. And guess what? This meant so much to me that we've beaten the Norwegians at their game. The Norwegians are annoyingly brilliant at doing anything to do with polar travel. But, you know, an Englishman who'd never skied much managed to beat them at their own game. So eventually, Captain Scott won, Amundsen won. It felt good. Went back home and met up with Jacques Cousteau. Jacques Cousteau, you might recognize him now, a few of the listeners, viewers. Jacques Cousteau didn't say, well done, Robert, because he came from France. He didn't talk about anything. He just looked at me and he said, what are you doing, young man, for the next 50 years of your life? I said, well, can I sit down while you tell me? 30 years ago, he gave me a mission. In the year 2041, the moratorium, the protection of Antarctica, that whole issue could be changed, could be altered, it could be scrapped. And I think it's really, really important that Antarctica and the future of Antarctica doesn't go beneath the radar. A lot of people getting in rooms, government speaking, decisions made about a continent that we all own. No one owns Antarctica. And it is my intention, inspired by Jacques Cousteau, to try and help the fact that Antarctica should remain a continent, land, a peaceful continent, land for science and peace. And, you know, we've been working on that now for 30 years. How have we tried to do that? Well, first, involving young people, because they'll be voting in the year 2041. And we started this, I don't know, 15, 20 years ago, and went down to Antarctica. I like practical missions, and being a complete idiot, we saw all this metal and twisted stuff left by the former Soviet Union, Russia, in Antarctica, and we said, oh, well, we'll clean it up for you. Probably one of my biggest regrets. This took 10 years. It cost $8 million the idiot here had to raise. A joint cooperation with the Russian government, don't try it, but this was great. We took down young people, businesswomen, businessmen, engineers, and gradually pulled all this together on King George Island, managed to get somehow, I don't know how, a beautiful yacht sponsored for our mission called 2041, took down an old big ship and filled that ship up. This took 8 years of battling, no infrastructure, loaded that ship up. That took 4 months. And inspired by my mum, she sends lots of love to anybody, especially to you, Justin and Lauren, but to anybody listening. My mum is 105 years old, and she inspired me as a kid to take recycling seriously before it was put on a box in the corner of some office. And she said, Rob, you can't go to Antarctica, take all that rubbish out and not recycle it, boy. So we did the job and recycled all of this back in the country of Uruguay, South America, job done. And on this day, it was a great day. The penguins came ashore onto their beautiful, clean beach. But I suddenly realized that possibly the most important part of leadership is to remember to be relevant. And I suddenly realized that being a garbage collector in Antarctica would be good, but it wouldn't help preserve Antarctica. How could I help that really happen? Well, you had to think about business. So if we use more clean, renewable energy to scale in the real world, then no one's going to go to Antarctica for energy and resources because it won't make financial sense per barrel of oil, ton of gas, ton of coal. So I changed from being a rubbish collector to try to be a renewable energy champion to help that move forward. So eventually it would be KPMG or Price Waterhouse Coopers that saved Antarctica, a bunch of accountants saying it's not worth going there. So we started with our beautiful yacht, 2041, a voyage around the world, talking and focusing on clean, renewable energy. Here we are under my favorite bridge in the world, not far from where I'm speaking now. And we would go around the world, in fact, 225,000 nautical miles, which included, by the way, going into the Sydney Hobart yacht race, where we got hammered by a fearsome storm and actually came 22nd in that race because the weather was so bad. our yacht was designed for bad weather. We would show people all over the world how renewable energy can work on a yacht. We even had solar panel sails, but the sails were made of recycled plastic bottles, just trying our best. In our engine, as we went around the world, we would test out different types of biofuel and try and inspire people that renewable energy can work. And every year, without fail, we head to Antarctica, and we have done for the last 17 years, believe it or not, with young leaders, old leaders like me, down to Antarctica. And on those expeditions, we try and involve as many countries as we can possibly get on board. Why? Because in the year 2041, if I can have hundreds of nations saying hands off Antarctica, that's going to help our case. We take lots of fantastic women from the Middle East. We take lots of young leaders from India. It's always hard to really put India into context, but let's just say there's more people who live in Bombay, Mumbai, one city, than there are people in the whole of Australia. So there are 1.4 billion people in India, and there are more young people under 25 in India than there are people in the whole of Europe. There's an idea. So we've got to work with India, and we've got to work with China, not just to help save Antarctica, which I hope they will, but also for our survival here on the planet anyhow. What we see in Antarctica is just unbelievable, actually. It's so frightening because I go there every year and I see the changes. And in order to again try, I mean, we may not succeed, but we never stop trying. So I thought, hang on, got to get to teachers. They're important people in this. So we decided that we would build these little education stations in as many places around the world as possible. They don't have people in them, but they're connected to the internet, connected to teachers all over the world. And we have one in Antarctica, running only on renewable energy. That works fantastically. And we really, you know, I don't like to hear things like people saying, well, of course, India is the problem. And then people don't do anything. So I thought, okay, no good taking a yacht to India. No one would listen. It's irrelevant. So between 2010 and 2013, I spent 3 years on a bicycle going around India. Why? Because I felt it was relevant to the young people there. Had I gone in a limousine, the kids wouldn't have listened. But, you know, fat Englishman on his bike with a very red face arriving at their school, college and university, they'll always remember that. Why I like India immensely is that there aren't any rules. And if you check out on the screen here, the color of the traffic signal, it's red and everybody's just going straight through, just my sort of place. But trust me, Justin, this is far more dangerous than walking to the South Pole in your underpants, because it's a pretty wild place to be on a bike in India, but it hopefully was relevant to the kids. We went up high to the Himalayas, incredible place. And, you know, this is the source of the Ganges River, which provides water for 500 million people. And that glacier is melting almost at crawling speed. So up in the Himalayas, we managed to build a little education station linked to lots of schools and young people and teachers running on renewable energy again. And every year we go up into the Himalayas and power up a few villages off solar. Really exciting stuff. And this young man did not like me because he now had to do homework after 6 o'clock at night because he's got a solar light. All of this is small stuff. But you know something, lots of small things put together can make a huge difference. And frankly, at this stage, I was thinking maybe a holiday could be in order, but I was hauled in by NASA. I really respect NASA. They're a great organization. They're unemotional. They measure stuff. And they hauled me in, and I made a big mistake by taking my most excellent son, Barney, into this meeting with NASA. And NASA said, Rob, all these areas that are coloured are starting to melt and break off Antarctica. Why aren't people taking it seriously? And I said, possibly because you're being really boring about it. And Barney sort of kicked me under the table and said, out, Dad, before you say the wrong thing yet again. And when we left NASA, we suddenly thought, wow, this is a huge amount of ice that's breaking off Antarctica. And it may not affect us, the privileged people, but I happen to know this family in the Maldives, and they had to move house, and they did nothing to deserve having to move house. It was our fault. So Barney said to me, Dad, listen, stick with the program, make sure that you hammer on with the protection of the Antarctic. But really, Dad, we have an issue here with young people today. And I said, well, what's that issue, Barney? And he said, we're pretty upset with the state of the planet that your generation and the generations before have left for us. We have every right to be angry, frustrated, to point fingers at government, to point fingers at industry and business. But he said, that's not going to get us anywhere, is it, Dad? I said, no, because being angry really doesn't get you anywhere. So he wanted to form an organization, a campaign called the Climate Force Challenge. And I thought, this is great, Barney, sounding good, convenient solutions for young people. It's sounding excellent. And then he said, but I'm sick of being your son in your shadow, you know, the Rob Swan who walked to the pole. He said, I want to do this. So I said, well, what are you talking about? He said, you've got to come with me. And I promise you, I didn't just hang my skis up when we reached the North Pole. I bolted them to the wall. But he said, come on, Dad, come with me. And I said, okay, I'll come with you. But we must go the extra step in order to help protect Antarctica. So we need to make the first ever expedition to any pole surviving on renewable energy only. And you, Justin, you know what this is like. Throwing out the jet aviation fuel is, you know, it's a big step. But we worked with NASA. This was so great. And they helped prepare these incredible ice melters where there was some magic thing at the bottom which we weren't allowed to look at, which was the NASA tech. And you would fill this with ice and snow, and through solar, 6 hours later, you'd have hot water. Incredible. And one day they'll use this technology for the first people who ever go to Mars. This was fantastic. And it was so cool. At the end of 2018, you know, off we went. Barney and I, side by side. I was pretty enthusiastic because I think it's so important that generations join together. We can't afford sort of old people and young people to be working separately. We're in a survival situation on Earth. The last great exploration on Earth is to survive on Earth. And we have to work together on that mission. So this was really great to go with my son. And I was so excited, but sadly, and it's quite an emotional day today, because sadly, exactly 3 years ago, my hip, my real hip, decided that it had enough. It was grinding out. And 3 years ago today, I failed badly on my expedition. You know, I failed in everything in life, but I never failed to get to the pole when I said I would. And this was a pretty difficult thing. We got to Thiel Mountains, you know it well, Justin. And I had to turn out and go back to base. And this was just desperate, A, to fail, and B, to leave my son Barney with two brave companions to carry on the hardest section of the journey. This was horrible. But Barney, at the age of 23, would lock it in and keep going to the pole. Absolutely incredible. I lost a bit of his toe, but that didn't really matter. And I managed to hitch a ride to the pole to welcome Barney and Kyle and Martin. They'd achieved that incredible journey on renewable energy. And it was so wonderful to celebrate his moment, not mine, his moment. It felt good. But Justin, you know what it's like. I wasn't going to look at a map of Antarctica and say to myself, well, there were 300 miles to go. Because one of the dreams I'd had, and I'd forgotten about this dream actually, was to try and cross the landmass of Antarctica. And if I get these 300 miles done, I'll have crossed the Antarctic landmass. So I thought, okay, game on, got to go back, finish the job, and had a brand new hip installed. And early this year, we would head back to complete those last 300 nautical miles to the pole. And I needed literally the A team for this. And I know you know them both personally, I'm sure, but I wanted the people who could get me to the pole, lead me to the pole and get this job done. And I asked Johanna and Katinka from Sweden and Norway to lead me to the pole. These are just the top class A team of polar explorers. Kyle, our incredible film cameraman, would be with us, and us four set off for the last 300. We'd again be testing extraordinarily different types of fuel and technology on this journey. We even had fuel made from dirt and CO2 that we put into our atmosphere. This incredible company in Switzerland suck it out, and they made me jet fuel. So great. And off we went. And it was just great. I actually, for the first time ever in any polar journey, I enjoyed myself, which I never thought I would. And the hip felt good. 300 miles and 150 clicks to go, 97 to go. And I think this is in the can. We've got this. 40 miles to go. And then I made a fundamentally stupid mistake, took my eye off, fell over, and my brand new hip blew out of its socket. And this was not the best day of my life, I have to say. Huge amounts of pain. And again, I felt I'd failed. I'd let everybody down, and it just felt appalling. I had the shortest plane ride in history to the South Pole, literally took off, went up, came down, and it felt so lonely to be at the pole and not have achieved the mission I'd had for 33 years to cross the landmass. But if you're trying to protect something like Antarctica, we've got 20 years to go, so I need to step it up and keep going. And I've had a brand new hip put in again. Imagine what my surgeon thinks of me. Not much, I have to say. Brand new hip in, and at the end of 2021, beginning of 2022, with some fantastic wounded veterans from all over the world, we're going to go in, finish the damn job, and the expedition's called Undaunted. And finally, I really believe in these words. You know, the greatest threat to our planet is the belief that somebody else will save it. So I hope in our own small way, people have enjoyed our story, because it's not mine. And don't laugh, everybody. I know I'm late to the game and kicked in the backside by my son, Barney, who's in Australia at the moment. I several years late, joined Instagram. So please check out our Instagram, follow us if you've got a moment, because I need to get millions of people in the next 20 years behind the preservation of the Antarctic. All the very best. This is Rob Swan, Going Clear.
Rob, you are an absolute legend. I'm going to give you... It's only two of us right here, but we're going to give you a round of applause, mate. I feel useless. I feel like I haven't done enough for the planet, Rob. After hearing that, I need to go out there and do something.
For God's sake, pull yourself together immediately. You've done incredible things, and I'm so proud to be with you both. And, you know, seriously, as I said, it's not me, it's we.
No, 100%. I couldn't agree with you more. It's just, it really inspires me and motivates me to go out and want to do more. I think sometimes I can feel... my world is too small and I've got to think bigger. And so I appreciate that for that kick of motivation that I needed to wrap up 2020. Lauren, thoughts?
I think that the biggest thing that I think I need personally, and maybe there's others out there that need it as well. And tell me if my mic is not loud enough on either of you, because it fell off halfway through your chat, so I had to put it back on. But I think the thing that I need most and others need most at the moment is there's a lot of overwhelm. And I speak from my own perspective that for the last 15 years I've been working in sustainability. So I, like you, Rob, believe that, you know, if we can turn business and have a dollar value to environmental and social either problems or issues, that's really the way that we will, you know, turn the tide effectively, make it not worth people going down there for the reasons that they're going down there in the future, and change the investment paradigm that we can actually do good business and do good for the planet. So that's been my point for the last 15 years. However, even with that, I still genuinely don't feel like I'm doing enough. And I think for a lot of young people, they feel like this is the time to act, and what do we do? So given, I think, that you are an amazing adventurer and a doer, I think, how do people take that first step? Just like on your expeditions, going to Antarctica, when you went to Antarctica, was almost impossible, but you did it and you took a first step, and you've done it time and time again. Where do people start if they want to be a part of this time that we're living in and make a difference?
Well, I think it's not as hard as people think it is. And I think it really is a question of literally saying, okay, what can I do? And I think it's time that people really, as I said, it's not somebody else's problem, it's all of our problems. So that might just be something that people say, okay, well, I'm going to, you know, buy green electricity for my house, or I'm going to transport myself in a different way, or I'm going to use some solar, or I'm going to, there are very simple things. And my son, Barney, with his Climate Force campaign, has some great ideas of very, very simple things that people can do. However, I think it really, what you're asking also is, how do you start to make a dream come true? And that dream might be to be more sustainable, it might be to help our planet, but it could be lots of different things. Yeah. And I think the first thing is to say to oneself, do I believe in this? And I know both of you, and Justin especially, on the sort of crazy things you've done, you have to believe it. You might panic a bit during it, but before you start, you have to believe it. And I think that in my way, I suppose I've often practiced a lot on talking to people and saying, well, look, you know, maybe this might be an idea, and people sort of looking at me like this going, what? And I think, well, okay, need to change the pitch a bit. But I think it's making a commitment to yourself, and then making a commitment to other people. And gradually you'll find yourself, if you make enough commitments, that you've got to do it. Justin, this has happened to you, I know.
Oh, 100%.
You get people to support you, and then you go, shit, I'm stuck with it. I've got to do this.
I think that was really, I loved what you said is, you know, in terms of having that plan, that you need to think carefully first and then make a commitment. And I think that goes to, you know, when you really believe in it, make commitments to things that only matter to you or to, you know, other people or the time frame, and then follow through. And I think just saying you're going to do something, knowing you want to do it and saying it is half the battle.
I couldn't agree with you more. I mean, if you just put it down to the universe, one, I think you've done something. And I'm not really a energetic person, but I really do think it. You say it, you enunciate it, and it's not just locked away in the recesses of your mind to become like a failed fantasy. As soon as you say it, then it's out there. You've put it into the world, and then the more people know about it, they keep you accountable. And yeah, no, I've said things to Lauren. She keeps me accountable.
Well, I think it's, and that's the deal. And I'll give you a great story, because one of the, my great heroes in the polar world is, our mutual friend, Eric Phillips, who, I really, really respect. And he has helped me endlessly. I mean, because I had to update everything. Jonesy. Imagine, guy walks the South Pole 100 years ago, me, what was the latest in gear? What should I have? How should I run the expedition? And Eric helped me hugely. But there's a great story in there that a young lady who Eric knows very well wanted to do the last degree. And as you know, the last degree to the South Pole is pretty hectic. You've got to fly in there. It's bloody cold. You've got to walk 60 miles. And this young lady, Paulina, never done anything like this ever, but it was her dream. And I think part of it is you've got to do it in stages. So I said to Eric, Eric, look, I can't tell Paulina's parents, because she's only 19, that she can go on the last degree. You've got to help me put her through a test. So Eric, with the team and myself, went up to Svalbard. We went through the whole thing. Paulina came through it. And at the end, Eric said to Paulina, look, if you remember where your gloves are, you can do this, right? You can make it to the pole. And I think part of what that story to me is that you can be inspired by the people as you make that journey forward. So Eric was a huge inspiration to Paulina. And guess what? She went in and did the last degree with my son Barney just after my hip fell out. So, other people can take you forward, and you should share that story with as many people as you can and commit to it.
That last degree for a second here. A lot of people I know, there are some people out there that, explorers that might poo-poo the idea of a last degree, but you fly to an altitude and you're not starting from sea level like if you're doing a coastal trip and you're making all your way up. You start at altitude, so it hits you, and down the bottom of the world there's a lot less oxygen. How are you going to handle that on your next little trip? Are you going to do some high altitude training?
Yeah. Well, I think it's a very good point. Yes, I am. Because it's, as you know, to just go in there and do it, it's a smash. So I'm going to do some high altitude training and, thank God, take it easy for the first few days. So there's no race, there's no kind of got to do 15 miles in a day. I'll do 3 miles on the first day and take it easy. I think I deserve that now.
Do you really know how to take it easy? I think if we could tap into your energy source, which is you, then I think the world would be truly, truly right.
I don't know. Justin, by the way, both of you, sometimes you're cutting out. I don't know whether that's going to be bad for the recording at the end. I'm just jumping in to say that a couple of times when you've been speaking, I've lost a few of your words.
Okay, I seem to have recorded that all on this end, so I'll check and recheck it.
That's fine.
Again
That's
later.
fine. No. I was just saying that if there was something amiss. No, if you've got it recorded where I can hear you loud and clear, it's just the odd word that maybe it's my end that it's not powerful enough.
It could be the wind that's howling actually out here in this wild Tasmanian weather. And if you are hearing a buzzing around as well, that is actually a blowfly in the room.
A wild blowfly.
A wild Taswegian blowfly.
Wild blowfly.
Yeah.
Taswegian blowfly.
Yeah, they're tough little things.
Annoying.
They don't die either.
I think one of the things I wanted to say is that, I've had a great association with your country, and please excuse me for being a POM, but as I say, I do live in America, because only I, being completely ridiculous, could organise a South Pole expedition from London and then a North Pole expedition from Sydney, Australia, and I've got some great friends in Australia. Lady called Christine G, I think she's listening to this. She helped put the Ice Walk North Pole expedition together, and I've got a great affinity to your country. I just wish that they could show more leadership on the issue that we're talking about today, and I feel possibly that might be getting better, but it's so annoying that Australia has so much to offer and often doesn't seem to deliver on its potential for renewable energy and sustainability as much as I believe they could.
Yeah, I mean, that's, where do you want to go with that? I mean, that's a huge can of worms to open up there. I think there's this, it's a big conversation, but what I might do in the show notes after this one is I'll post a video, and I'll send it to you after this because I think you'll enjoy it. And it's about Australia's history, looking back at the Kyoto, Paris agreements and whatnot, and how Australia has dodged, ducked and weaved and bent the rules to suit this country and make it look like we're doing better than we actually are. So it's done funny, in a funny manner, but it's educating the masses. So I'll send that through, and it'll be in the show notes after this. But yeah, you're right. Australia needs to do better.
I'd love to see it. I'd love to see it. And my good friend, I knew him very well when I was down there, Peter Garrett. You can't say a guy tried any harder than he did, and it just seems a shame. And I hope that we, all of us, can work together to push that agenda forward, because if Australia can't lead, how the hell can Indonesia lead, or developing nations that kind of look up to us, whether that's right or wrong?
No, I think you nailed it when you said that there's really a need for collaboration, both collaboration at the leadership level and then collaboration at the smaller level. I mean, I like how we're all talking too. Your son's in Australia. You're a Brit in America. I'm an American in Australia. Justin was born here, lived in Indonesia and here. So the
Tassie.
world, yeah, and now we're in Tassie. The world is getting smaller in many. Well, I guess we're getting more connected, and what we do matters, and how we lead matters. And I hear so often, why would Australia do anything? Because it has such a small carbon footprint. However, per capita, it has a huge carbon footprint.
It's much worse. Yeah, huge, enormous, way up there on the list. And I just feel that, let's not be negative about it. Let's inspire the next generation in Australia to move things forward. I refuse to be negative, and one of my big plans in about 3 years' time is that it's so important that we make sure that people in Asia, especially young people, really understand their responsibility, because they're going to lead the world. China, India, they are the next empires on earth. And without being silly, there used to be a thing called the British Empire. Now look what happened to them. A bunch of losers on an island that can't even stay part of Europe, and forget it. But the next empires on earth are going to be Asia, and I think it's important that we inspire young people in Asia. And that's when I finish with all this walking to the pole carry on, we're going to launch a campaign, a mission from the United States of America by yacht to sail across the Pacific, go and meet some of those island nations to get them behind the preservation of the Antarctic, and then probably based from Australia, launch some voyages up into Asia to try and get hold and inspire young people, because it doesn't matter really what we do in the West. It doesn't really matter what we do almost in Australia, to be honest. What matters, the front line, is really China and India, and that's going to be our little effort, over the next few years to get going. So I hope we can work together a bit on that.
Well, and I think the two quotes that I've actually used this quote in a presentation, Rob, before I even was lucky enough to meet you. But the greatest threat to our planet is the belief that someone else will save it. I think that is so true, and I think that's where taking these steps to make change, little or big, is so important for every person, whether you live in the US or whether you live in Australia or whether you live in the UK or whether you live in India. And I think that, people go on these adventures because they matter, because they're impossible, because they're a first. And the other thing that you said that I think really puts it into perspective is the last great expedition on Earth is to survive on Earth. I mean, we are all on the most amazing adventure, and the time is now. I think. What do you think about, why is there a strong need to act now? If people say, oh, this is system or this is seasonal, why is there an imperative to act now, or is there?
Oh, yes. I think that anybody who's watching this should see, one of my seriously big time heroes, David Attenborough, his latest film, Life on the Planet. Just watch it. The guy's 93, he's still in the ring, and I really respect that. And he's just really saying it has to be. And I think what's a worry for me is that we, as I said earlier, it's so important that young people especially have a right to be angry, but we've got to take that tide of passion and everything, and we've got to turn that into solutions as soon as we possibly can. And I think that, talking in terms of resilience and everything, our world has shown terrific resilience over the last 8 months. There are dolphins swimming around in Venice. The people, my friends in Delhi, are actually sort of going out and running for the first time ever because they can breathe some air. And our world's shown us that it can survive. And I think we should be listening to that. And as you said earlier, Lauren, and I really respect that, is, normal wasn't right. So I just hope and pray that we've been given this chance. And I know that perhaps some people listening have lost loved ones, and it hasn't been an easy time, this COVID thing, but it has to be looked as it's given us a chance. And we should seize that chance of making change. And that might be personal change, or it could be planetary change. But now is the time. And experts, I don't really like experts much, to be honest, but experts, even if you double the time they say, and they're saying, well, we got 10 years to make some, to turn the ship. Well, let's say it's 20 years to turn the ship. In order to turn the ship, you have to turn it now, because it takes time for it to come back on course.
Yeah.
It doesn't just happen like that. So I think now is the time. And I think that hopefully people feel inspired to make change, because let's be honest, what's happened to us all has happened because we've messed with the planet.
Yeah.
Bats gave this to pangolins, a little animal that doesn't even live in China, by the way, and people ate the pangolins, and here we go. The whole planet has gone, and that's messing with the planet. So I just hope that people don't just say, oh, it's back to normal. I don't actually think, and I think, Justin, you'd agree with me that, you dream when you're walking to the pole of going back to normal, but it's never really the same again, is it?
No.
When you get home.
Yeah, you change as a person. So when you come back, it's a misfit. You don't work, and so the hope is that 2020 has been a change enough that people in 2021 go, you know what, we can't live like this. It's got to be different. Now I am like, there's a side of me. I'm hopelessly positive in some regards, but when it comes to planning. Pessimistic, I know. It's probably what I am, pessimistic.
It's a good word.
I like it.
It's a really good word. It's a good word. Like it.
So I'm actually pessimistic. So I'm positive at times, but then I go into a bit of a fatal negativity at times, and I'm pessimistic because, there's a train of thought around the need for a great disruption before people will really take everything seriously, and whether the 2020 has been big enough, that everyone's backs have been up to the wall hard enough. I don't know. I don't feel like at times that we've hurt enough. Humans are very, very selfish in that regards. They won't mobilize until it affects them directly.
And I think that's really what, that's why I always say that, the heroes and heroines of this last great exploration, have to be now, because whether we like it or not, and if we don't inspire, the next empires on earth, India and China, to take some of this more seriously, especially the young up and coming business people there. It's gonna get worse, and it will get worse, and because of greed it'll keep on getting worse. But this is where we come in, that we've got to keep fighting here as hard as we possibly can, because there will be one moment where this gets so bad that actually people do get together, they have the meetings and seriously change things because they've got to, because they're being threatened. Now, if we haven't done what we've done here, it's game over.
Yeah, true.
So if we keep raising the bar here as much as we possibly can, then when it's taken seriously, Justin, there is hope. If we don't do this, forget it. Simple as that. And I hope that doesn't sound negative at all, because I think it's quite positive.
No, that's brilliant. That is a great way to describe it, I think. And anyone who is feeling that apathy out there about the situation is like, well, why should I be bothered? That is the reason why. We've got to build that baseline so that when it's time to swing, we're in a position to swing. Yeah. Otherwise, we're screwed.
Also, I think that there's, I think that it's worth mentioning that with any challenge comes opportunity, comes innovation. I mean, you had the challenge of being down in Antarctica with Barney and wanting to do it 100% solar. And that was a challenge, obviously, and that had its risks. But what it did do was create innovation with NASA, and also to prove to a lot of people that if you could do it in Antarctica, in a very remote place, you can do it anywhere. And we do. I mean, scientists have said, and industry has said, we do have all of the technology that we need available today to turn this tide.
We do.
And we do have,
but it's a hard one, that, isn't it? It's a very hard thing to take on board and not feel a bit down in the dumps, and a bit pessimistic. Good new word, Justin. That sort of thing really grinds me, because if it's there, why can't we push it forward? And I think it is being pushed forward, but I think we as people, and this is such an important thing to me, that we as people can help that happen. So, if somebody has an electricity utility bill or whatever they're called in Australia, you can ring up your energy provider and ask them for green energy. Now, that doesn't mean to say the energy is coming off your roof or a solar panel array in Hobart, but it's coming from somewhere into your home. It's part of that balance between fossil fuel stuff and green energy. And if more people ask for it, then more solar panel farms will go up, etc., etc. So I feel very much that we shouldn't back down on the small efforts that we can make. And that's, as I say, where Barney comes in, my son, with his Climate Force campaign, just to say, hey, you can do stuff, which I think is important.
And I think that action, we've heard that from a lot of guests when they do set these huge goals, whether that's an expedition or an adventure or are up against a huge goal to change the trajectory of our planet. It's those first steps that are often the hardest and most important. So I think what the work that you are doing and Barney is doing, maybe we should get Barney as a guest in 2021 to help us walk through those first steps. Because I think oftentimes once you're rolling, it's a lot easier, both in expedition and in life.
I'm just going to put up the website for Climate Force because...
Well, I couldn't agree more. And Justin knows this. Sorry?
No, I was just going to say I'm going to put up the website for it because jump on climateforce.org. There's a lot of really simple broke down tips in order to how you can actually help this problem. So everyone who's watching, jump on that and we'll get Barney on. Sorry, Robert, take it away.
No, please do. I think that what that's about, bottom line, is you're saying it, Lauren. How do you take those first steps? So Barney, lives here in America. He loves it here, and he's a proper mountaineer and all the things I'm not. And he loves America. But when COVID struck, he thought, wow, I'm going to run into a problem with the immigration people, with the orange man, Mr. Trump, in charge of the country. Then, Barney could have been deported or something ghastly, or have a black mark put on his visa here in the States. So he decided to go back to his mum and his home in Australia, up in far north Queensland, and thought he might sort of go and chill out, do a bit of diving on the Barrier Reef for a few weeks. But then suddenly, Australia went lockdown. And, I'm so proud of him because he made that first step. And there's a piece of land up there in the rainforest, the oldest rainforest on the planet, I might say. And Barney found some land and he's trying to buy it. It was hacked down. The real rainforest was hacked down for growing bananas. The bananas didn't really work. And Barney's trying to buy that land now and then plant millions of trees on that land. Now, the first step is to say, damn it, let's do it. And I think that is something that possibly he might have learned from his father. I think he's probably learned a lot of things that he shouldn't learn from his father, but that one thing of saying, damn it, let's do it, I hope is going to stand him in good stead. He's doing a good job up there.
No, I think that's an amazing... That damn it, let's do it should be a posted on my computer, because for a long time I went into this, in our conversation a couple of weeks ago, Justin, that I would let perfection stand in the way of progress because I wouldn't know exactly how it was going to work, or I was worried about how it was going to fall apart. And I think that what I've learned from a lot of adventurers like yourself, Rob, and from Justin is, yes, you have to plan, and yes, you have to have that, all those steps, but the first thing is that dream, and just to say I care about this and I am going to do it. So thank you for refreshing that, and I will put that as my 2021 screensaver. Damn it, let's just do it.
I've got to ask a question.
Damn it, let's just do it. Well, I'm absolutely thrilled to be part of this, guys. Such fun.
I've got to ask a question though, Rob. I'm probably conscious you probably have to duck off soon, but a helpful hint, because Barney as well, been up there in far north Queensland, there's a certain sort of demographic in that region that's kind of can be fairly negative towards climate change and whatnot. How do you deal with deniers? How do you handle that? How?
Well, I've become quite used to this. I'm in the United States of America, for God's sake. And what I say is very simple. If somebody says to me, Rob, climate change isn't happening, I say, I really, really, really hope you're right.
I see.
And I say to them, however, do you insure your home, your house? Do you insure your life? Do you insure your car? Do you insure your bicycle? And they normally say, yeah, we insure stuff. And I say, well, you don't insure things because you're going to die tomorrow. Your house is going to set on fire, or your car is going to be stolen, your bicycle is stolen. You don't do that thinking it's going to happen tomorrow. You do it just in case. And I say to them, that's what we're talking about here. That it'd be great if climate change isn't happening, but it looks quite likely that it is, and actually science has pretty much said it is. But let's just say that we're not causing it. Could be. But let's take as many steps as we possibly can, just in case we might be making it worse. And a lot of people look at me and go, okay. And you don't challenge them. You don't say they're wrong. You say, okay, hope you're right. But, I have actually walked across ice melting at the North Pole, and now you can't walk to the North Pole, and that's quite a lot of ice that's melted. I think it's very, very easy to create friction. It's best to try and pull them in, and the insurance story is a good one.
That's fantastic.
That's a really good one.
That's great, because if you try to convert or change or argue, then you just put a wedge, and we got to remove all the wedges we can between different sides, because we need to come together as a race.
Exactly. And be positive. You know, I don't think anybody I've ever met in life, who is inspired by negative. I never have been. I don't think many people are. So I think it's important when you come across negativity to give it a blast of positivity.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. Rob, I'm conscious of the timing here. I think you probably need to duck off in a couple of minutes or so, or are you good for time? How are you looking?
We could talk to you forever, so...
I've got another 5 or 10 minutes. I think, you know, well, it's been fun. No, it's down to you to kind of... Let's have another 5 or 10 minutes.
Excellent. I just want to make sure.
Can I do a little wrap up, or do you want to do questions?
You do a wrap up, and then I want to ask one more question. So you do your little wrap up.
I don't know how. How about I won't call this one a wrap up, because I'll call it a conversation starter, because I think I would love to have this be the start of many conversations, Rob. But we always kind of summarize some of the key adventure thinking lessons and the nuggets of wisdom, and you have so many. But I'll start off with, you know, the back to normal. Normal isn't working, and so where do we go from here? And I think that it's really important to kind of have those steps of actions, and listen to grandma was a good one. You know, grandmas are usually right, and that future generation is, you know, they've seen a lot that's happened, and so how do we kind of make our impact from the wisdom of the people that have gone before it, but do it for the youth as well and get them involved. And I think that there has been a theme in your conversation about collaboration, getting the people that matter involved. And I think you also had a really great leadership lesson that's remember to be relevant. You know, for business, it needs to make financial sense. So how do we use, I guess, this change in our planet to be an opportunity that we can capitalize off of to make a difference? I think also make it relevant is important for, you know, you talked about how you biked across India, and you did it because you wanted to impact the young people. And that is also a theme. How do we engage the young generation? Because this is their world too, and we haven't done such a great job looking after it. And how do we work together to do that? The other thing, small things can make a difference. So these problems can seem big and potentially pessimistic, but small things can make a difference. And that being optimistic around taking that first step, doing the small thing, it all matters, I think is really a good reminder for us all. I think within times of challenge comes opportunity and innovation. I loved how you know, decided to be human powered across Antarctica and to be solar powered across Antarctica. And that created innovation and partnership and collaboration with NASA, with the UN, with other organizations. So I think that remembering that having these big dreams, driven by a purpose and a mission is really important. You know, you have to, what did you say? I'm looking through, I have so many notes. You have to know, where is it? Where do you start to make a dream come true? You have to believe it. So I think that's a great first step that we can all kind of pull back. There's also a power in saying it. Think long, act short, do it in stages. And I liked your who is it that told you, remember where your gloves are? As long as you can find those, you're off and running with the races, and you'll be able to achieve this large goal that you set. And then first step is to say it, damn it, and let's do it. And also, have you insured your home? Because it is our home planet, I think is a really great way of putting this climate change into perspective, and how we should be treating our planet just like we treat our home when we insure it, because we love it, because we value it, because we want to live in it. So thank you, Rob, for all these nuggets of wisdom, for doing the work that you're doing, for protecting Antarctica in 2041. We will put up, we have links to that foundation, because you also said something that was actually, and I've worked in sustainability for a while, but I didn't realize that 90% of ice and 70% of the world's fresh water comes from Antarctica. So if anybody cares about, if anybody says, why does Antarctica matter so much? I think that is a huge thing to remember. Also, it's kind of the last free, wild place. And I love that you have a vision and a passion for keeping it there for beauty, for nature, and for science. So that is a big goal worth fighting for.
Well, thanks, Lauren. You're hired. You've sort of done everything more than I could on getting it all down. So thanks so much. Really very special. I really appreciate that. It sort of makes you feel quite humble, really, that, as I say, from a lot of crazy stories, that possibly there might be one or two things in there that might help people. So thank you.
Oh, I forgot one thing. This is the thing. You're a really hard one to summarize. I give myself a grade of maybe a C on that one, but have a plan. Think clearly, make commitments, and follow through. And I think that was a really, not only for a big adventure or an expedition or anything you believe in, I think that structure has served you well, as we can see. And it's something that...
well, I hope so.
Yeah.
No,
yeah.
That's why I love this. She's a really good listener. Amazing listener. I wanted to just touch off on one last thing because we
have questions.
We had a couple, but look, I think we've wrapped through time. I wanted to talk about A68A, the iceberg. Now there is, because the reason why I like talking about this, or I want to talk about this, is there is an iceberg that broke off Antarctica in 2017 that is moving up towards South Georgia Island, and they expect that it's going to hit. And it's the size of South Georgia Island, and it's going to be pretty wide-scale damage. Have you been following this, Rob? Because I think this is a way that people can kind of get an idea for, on a small level, some of the damage that can be done, even though it's huge.
Well, I think that, you've had the Larsen B ice shelf that broke off 20 years ago. And then you had the Larsen C ice shelf split away. And I think that this iceberg, it's great that people are kind of following it, but you and I kind of know that eventually it's going to come and hit the seabed before it actually, takes out South Georgia. But I think it's good that people can visualize this thing sailing north to where it shouldn't be. It shouldn't be there. It shouldn't be that far north. So I think that it's good, but I don't think South Georgia is going to be run over. But I think it's important that people get it in their heads that that's the beginning, and that what happens with Antarctica is that these ice shelves that break off won't raise the sea level to an enormous degree because it's ice already in the water. But just a bit like taking a cork out of a bottle, these ice shelves, once they've gone, the main ice cap from ice on land can then flow into the ocean far quicker. And that's the big worry. So this is just, as with everything, it's just step by step by step. And I'm really glad that people are following that iceberg. And it's something I wanted to say actually today, that when we walked to the South Pole, we were following in the footsteps of Captain Scott, and as you both well know, Captain Scott died only 11 miles from a depot where there would have been food. Possibly he could have survived, I don't know, but that depot is 125 miles from the edge of Antarctica. And some very clever person the other day came up with the fact that since Scott and his companions died, that they probably moved about 30 miles north, and in another 200 years they'll break off in an iceberg and sail north home. I just thought that image of Scott eventually finishing his journey to the edge of Antarctica is an interesting one. It interests me, that in the end he made it.
Yeah, that's
make it.
It's I suppose it's a nice thought, but it's also a rough thought as well to think about everything melting and moving away. Now, we've probably run out of time, but there's been a couple of comments, and one that's just really nice that's popped up on the live feed has popped up and it said, Robert, your life work is one of true inspiration and impact. The main thing I have always taken away from your message is one of hope, if we act. What is your greatest hope? What is your greatest hope? And for 2021, singular action we can all do that will help become a reality. Oh, sorry, I can't read this, Roland. Can you read that for me? I can't see it.
What is your greatest hope for 2021, and what is one action that everybody listening could do that you think would be most impactful? It's a great question.
Better eyes than me.
I think the most important thing is that two things. One is to just keep pushing on with renewable energy, because that will mean people won't want to go to Antarctica to exploit it. But just to remember that we own it, and it should remain. And in Tasmania is the headquarters of the Australian Antarctic Division. They do brilliant scientific work in Antarctica. Keep supporting science in Antarctica, but at the moment, no one's going to vote on it. So my feeling always is to, let's get our troops ready. So, with your children, how old are they going to be in 20 years? So think. How can we make sure that in 20 years' time we've got the troops ready to push this through? But in the same time, renewable energy will help save Antarctica if we use more of it.
Yeah, and keeping it wild, I think is keeping it in a way that we can enjoy it in the future. Is definitely a worthwhile cause, and we're ready to be in your troop. We are here to be in your troop. We are.
No, we already are together. Justin, what you've been through, making your incredible journey to the South Pole and back. I mean, I can't really believe that anybody could be that stupid, but you did it. And I think that that's quite something, and I have a great deal of respect. In fact, Barney and I have got your book here at home, and we have read it. And Barney actually just sent me a message saying, "Are you on?" He's very excited about this. So, I just want you both to know that actually being happy and moving things forward as a family is hugely important. And I see you two together. It's fantastic what you're doing, bringing up your family on an island from an island. I love that. And don't be strangers. That's the most important thing. And in about 3 years' time, we'll be forging across the Pacific to get things going in Australia, and then move it up to Asia.
Sounds good. We'll help any way we can.
Yeah, we're ready to turn passions into solutions. We even just
don't be strange. Good luck and sorry.
I said we're ready to turn passions into solutions. Can you hear me?
I can now, but it has. I just hope the hell that this hasn't cut out on your end, because some of this I haven't been able to hear from you. But I think that's maybe because my internet could not be as powerful as yours. So if we have to do it again, we'll do it again.
Okay,
I'll support you to do it again.
Thank you. I think we're good. What it does is it prioritizes your feed coming in rather than our feed going out to you, because it's going out live to other people. So we have got it, I'm pretty sure. I will check. But Robert Swan, thank you so much for being so generous with your time today. I've been so excited. It's been an absolute wonder. Everybody, I'll put links up to the show. If you want to contact him, most of his handles are Robert C. Swan. And on Twitter, it's Robert C. Swan 1. Robert C. Swan 2041. So thank you so much for being part of it today.
Thank you for being who you are and doing what you do. We really, really appreciate it.
Lots of love to you both, really.
Excellent.
Well done. Carry on. Good luck. Take care.
Catch you later.
Well done. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Oh, wow. Okay, so 2041.org is how you can find out about him. I'm just in awe. The guy's done so much, really. Like, who does that? Who does that? Who goes on a trip down to Antarctica and decides, you know what, I'm going to clean the place up because there's too much rubbish down there, and then spends the next 10 years moving 1,500 tons of excess material, rubbish, metal, and brings it back. It is out of control.
And spends the next 50 years, with this huge mission to protect a place he loves, both for his kids and for everybody else's kids.
Yeah.
So I think that's...
No, look, there's been a couple of people that have made some comments. So River, I think she's following from, hey River, how's it going? I know you. All the way over in probably Canada, actually. So she posted up before, I teach 6th grade geography and would love to show my students something like this when we get to the unit on Antarctica. River, this is on YouTube now. So it's a live format thing. You can show them this entire interview at the end, or whenever that unit comes up. We won't be taking it down, because this is something that people need to see. And she said it's all good here. I'm happy to say she missed half of it, but she's going to catch up on it later.
Yeah, you don't have to listen to this live, even though it is live. So feel free to, if you go to www.adventurethinking.com, we have just updated our website to put all of these conversations easily acceptable in a library format, so you can get to them when you have time.
Now, one thing, Lauren, can you just talk and say anything you need to say?
Sure.
If I just put you on the spot there, because I want to pull up a link for everyone, because this is something that I think everyone after this should actually watch who's based in Australia. It's that link to that Honest Australian ad.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah, I think there's the reason that we have done adventure thinking is because having that mindset of adventure can, I guess, activate, motivate, change, and impact your life significantly. So to learn from somebody like Robert, who has gone on these great adventures, his whole view of what's important in life has changed, and it's actually changed his life trajectory, I think is really important. So, and this is obviously a topic that's very close to my heart. I think the Sustainability Planet is the last great adventure and the only adventure worth focusing on, in my opinion, just because if we don't have a home to live on, then what is really the point? And I think taking, we are so lucky to have the beauty in our planet, taking little steps. One thing I was going to say, a little step that we've been taking, and if there's interest, we can put it up. Jess and I have become farmers.
Oh, yeah.
Gardeners.
I wouldn't call us gardeners yet. I mean, we're trying.
We're trying to rejuvenate our soil. So we live in a very sandy area. So we are doing above ground composting. We've done a worm farm, and we're starting to sow some crops. So that is our one action that we are going to be doing over Christmas, is getting our hands dirty and starting small in that really basic way of planting a seed. So everybody who's listening, if you want to make a comment, we'd love to hear what action you are going to do. Obviously, Robert said, everything starts with just the action and the little steps, and just get on and do it. So if you want to share the actions publicly, it makes them stick, as we heard. So feel free to send them through. We'd love to hear them and inspire each other. I don't know how we could share those or get those up.
In the comments?
Yeah, over time.
If people leave those comments actually on, I suppose, the show notes on this, the comments on Facebook or on YouTube, however you're watching it, or shoot us an email even on that adventurethinking.com. You can actually send us a note. We'll try to collate it and get it together, maybe
really
in a
fun
blog.
Maybe we could do, send us your one action that you are going to do, either between the new year or at the start of the new year, and we will put it together as a blog so that we can start inspiring each other to keep moving forward.
We should start a community.
Yeah.
We should do that. Anyway, so watch this little video. Should I actually play it as our outro today?
Sure.
I could try and do that, yeah. So it's hilarious. It's the Honest Australian ad agency, and they do honest government ads, and it's quite funny. I'll try to see if I can get this rolling, because it's I think it's worth it. So here we go.
It's not politically correct.
It's not politically correct. If you don't like swearing, then I would back off. So I'll just
if you have kids listening, like the teacher, maybe cut it off now.
Okay, yeah. Let's press play.
On the world stage, you'd literally die in
Sorry.
the ass of shame.
A bit like how you felt when we cheated in the cricket.
I just realized that the audio wasn't actually coming through that. So,
Put the link.
so I'm just going to put the link in. Anyway, it's hilarious. I'm going to cut this out of the audio-only
You
version.
have to laugh, but hopefully it will motivate us all to do something. Thank you, Robert Swan.
So I'm just trying to get us back on screen, Lauren. There we go. Sorry. That was a cockamamie cock
It's a
up.
nice try.
It was a nice try. It was a nice try. It was live.
We'll put it up on screen.
Whatever.
Anyway.
Okay, thank you so much, everybody, for following, for watching, and listening to us ramble and rave. But Robert Swan, like seriously, I feel like I need to go out and do something right now.
So first step is to say, damn it, let's do it, and let's start acting to, make a difference and to come together a bit more than we have in the past. And I think 2020 has showed us that we do need to do that we do need to come together, regardless of what country you live on, we all share the same planet and we need to take care of it. So thank you for watching. We appreciate it. Sending love. Happy New Year. Goodbye 2020. And we're excited to start 2021 with a new series coming up and a new series of adventures.
Yeah. No, guys, catch you later. And
Sorry for that cluster.
that was a cluster
In the
F at the end, but it's awesome. I love it. I love
Happy New
life.
Year
Bye.
from us to you.